What it is, my 10 Peace and Grease here. And you know what? Today I wanted to talk about some alternatives to this sortie reward pool. Now, it's no secret that DE has always catered or pandered to newer players. And that's understandable because honestly, when you have a game like Warframe, you need that constant influx of fresh blood. Get it? Because I'm running Garuda. Fresh blood. Boom. All right. Anyway, but you constantly need that influx of new people. All right, because if you have, say, 20 people come in to play Warframe, out of that 20 people, probably 2 or 3 will actually take the game seriously and actually continue to play it for a long period of time. Because there's literally that much drop off. You know, you're going to have some people that feel overwhelmed. You're going to have some people that don't feel like they're comfortable in the game because it's not something that they know. So they go back to what they know, right? Maybe they go back to Minecraft or something. And I don't mean that as a jab. I'm being serious. Like, they go back to games that feel comfortable to them, that they know. And there's such a sheer amount to learn in Warframe. It's a bit overwhelming. It's a bit overwhelming. So they go back to what they know and what they're comfortable with. So by the time it's all said and done and you boil it down after a couple months, you probably have maybe 2 to 3 people left out of the 20. But even from just strictly a trade chat perspective, you want that influx of new people because that's more people to sell to. I mean, you're sitting on vaulted you're sitting on vaulted prime sets, and experienced players already have it. So you can't sell it to them. So who are you going to sell to? That's right, the newer players. So you want that influx of new players because it gives you more people to sell to. All right? So strictly from just the trade perspective, you want that. Now, for popularity, seeing Warframe, on Twitch being in, the top 20, for example, you want that. Again, you want that. You want your game to be on the radar, and the only way to do that is to have that constant influx of people coming into the game. Constant influx of people looking up videos, which is where content creators like myself come in. That you have people constantly watching streams on the game. You need that. This is why DE pays people to play their games, play Warframe, that is, on stream, because they want people to look for that. So it's completely, totally, 100% natural and understandable that DE would do this. So, but when you start looking at how to cater and pander, how to increase the population of your game, it may be understandable to cater or pander to keep or get newer players into your game. You never want to do this at the expense of your intermediate to experienced or vet players. And unfortunately, more times than not, that's what happens in Warframe. And that's where we get to the sortie reward pool. If you need any more evidence of the catering or pandering that goes on to newer players, one quick look at the sortie is all the evidence that you need. Now, let me explain. If you're unfamiliar with why that reward pool right there tells you that this was built around and for newer players, let me explain why. Okay, so an Ayatan sculpture. Now, this one's worth about 3,500 Indo. A little bit more than that, but give or take about 3,500 Indo. And you can also get a 4,000 Indo drop. You can also get a 6,000 Kuba drop. Now, these sound like large numbers. You're thinking, okay, that's a significant amount. But is it really? Let's put this all into perspective for y'all. Now, on ribbons for Kuba, once you roll a ribbon 10 or more times, you end up with the fixed cost on ribbons to roll them at 3,500 Kuba each roll. Okay? Now, 6,000 Kuba won't even let you roll a ribbon twice. You can literally only roll a ribbon one time. Okay? Now, this one's been rolled almost 30 times, for example. 6,000 Kuba sounds like a substantial amount, but I can only roll one ribbon one time with 6,000 Kuba. Let me say that again. 6,000 Kuba will only allow me to roll a singular ribbon a singular time. Okay? Now let's talk about Indo. In regards to Indo, let's put this whole thing into perspective again. So to fully upgrade, again, a singular ribbon, it's going to cost me over 7,500 Indo to roll to max one ribbon. 7,500. So literally 4,000 Indo sounds like a lot, but that only gets me about halfway. But let's not even talk about ribbons. We don't have to talk about ribbons. Let's talk about a regular mod. Where's it at? Let's look at a calculated redirection. To fusion and max rank up one calculated redirection, it's going to cost me over 10,000 Indo. Literally 4,000 Indo only gets me less than halfway. But if you still need more evidence, let me show you this. You should get a real kick out of this one. Here we go. So let's talk about primed mods. To fully rank in Fusion, one primed mod is going to cost me nearly 41,000 Indo. All right. So while 4,000 Indo or 3,500 Indo or 6,000 Kuva sounds like a significant amount, at the end of the day, this is nothing. Completely and totally irrelevant. Irrelevant. Doesn't matter to an experienced vet player. Literally 4,000 Indo, 6,000 Kuva does nothing for a newer player. Now, these are great for an experienced player. Now, these amounts are great for a newer player. They need Indo. Getting 4,000 Indo, that's great for them. Getting 6,000 Kuva, that's great for them. Getting 3,500 Indo on a cool new statue they haven't seen before. Hey, that's good, right? But let's keep going. I'm going to come back to the 3-day booster. So let's talk about these gold drops, which are going to consist of your Exilus adapters, your Forma, your Orokin catalyst, and your Orokin reactors. Now, newer players need these gold drops. Newer players need Exilus adapters. They need Forma. They need catalysts. They need reactors. They need those. Experienced and vet players don't. Now you may be wondering, wait a minute, you don't have to use them? No, we have to use them. But when you're sitting on, 63 Exilus adapters and 100 and something Forma and, 83 Orokin catalyst and 106 Orokin reactors, these are irrelevant. These don't matter to us. We don't need them. 100% irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Again, this reward pool was designed specifically for newer players. Because out of the 10 items on this list, experienced or vet players only run the sortie for one singular thing. The ribbon mod. That's it. That's the only reason why I ever bother running the sortie. Now you may be wondering, well, Peace, what about the legendary core? Listen, irrelevant, because legendary cores, they just don't drop enough to even talk about. These legendary cores are the equivalent of a unicorn that sneezes rainbows and farts Skittles. Let me put it in perspective for you. I know players that have over 4,000 hours. Over 4,000 hours. We're talking, they're pushing like 4,500 hours in Warframe. Have never gotten a single legendary core. Not once. Not once. I'm sitting on, what, I think last time I checked, around 2,500 hours. I've gotten one. And I count myself lucky. I'm not complaining, but I count myself lucky to have gotten that one legendary core. Because like I said, I know players with nearly 4,500 hours that have never even gotten one. And at nearly 2,500 hours, I have gotten one. So I'm lucky to have gotten that one. But my point is, they're so rare that you literally grab your butterfly net, go running outside and hunt down that unicorn that sneezes rainbows and farts Skittles. And I guarantee you'll probably find the unicorn before you'll get that legendary core to drop. So my point in saying all this is they just don't drop enough to even, they're not even worth talking about, because they quite simply just don't drop enough. It's irrelevant to even discuss. Now let's talk real briefly about the 3-day boosters, because I did skip over it. 3-day boosters have their place, and sometimes they're nice to have. Now, I'm going to talk about 3 boosters that are really, really good. In fact, I've recommended to you guys in a lot of my content, that if you're doing something, get a booster clicking. And I've said that before, and I support what I said. If you're a newer player, these 3-day boosters or 7-day boosters, they are invaluable to you. Invaluable. But we've been in a content drought for like what? A year or more at this point? If I run the sortie and it gives me, let's say, an affinity booster to help me level things up quicker, I'm going to waste it. Because I don't have anything to level. Experienced and vet players, we have all the weapons. We have all the Arcwings. We have all the Sentinels. We have all the Companions. We have all the Arcwing weapons. We have all the Warframes. Regular versions and Prime versions. We have all the weapons. Regular versions and Prime versions. We have it all. We've leveled it all. So giving me a 3-day affinity booster, what am I going to level? I've already spent, thousands of Forma in all my gear. I have formed all of my companions, all of my pets, my sentinels, my Arcwing weapons, my primary weapons, my secondary weapons, my melee weapons, my frames, and on and on. I've already formed them. So I don't need the affinity booster right now. I've literally wasted a ton of 3-day boosters awarded to me by the sortie. Gives me a resource booster. For what? We've been in a drought for like the past year. What am I going to use a resource booster on? I mean, yeah, it's nice to get those extra resources, but when you're sitting on millions of each resource or close to it, you're going to probably end up wasting it. Now, credit boosters are nice, especially right now, because we are in a double credit weekend. We are in a double credit weekend at the moment. So credit boosters are nice, but again, if you're sitting on 20 to 100 million credits, you're probably going to waste it. So I literally run the sortie for one thing. The unicorn that farts rainbows and sneezes Skittles, and a ribbon mod. It's the only reason I run the sortie. And even though the ribbon mod says it's a bronze drop, that's laughable. Because I have literally gone on a 1-week, 2-week benders every day, non-stop, straight for a week to 2 weeks of nothing but just Ayatan sculptures, over and over and over, back to back, non-stop. I have literally earned almost all of this stuff, with the exception of the unicorn, and before I earned one ribbon. In fact, it's probably been a good 2 to 3 months before I ran this sortie. I probably haven't ran this sortie, the daily sortie, in probably 2 to 3 months. This is the first time I ran it. My buddy Romo, 7 to 9 on YouTube. Check him out if you really good content creator. Does a lot of streaming, so check him out. Really good. He said, hey, let's jump in and let's knock this sortie out real quick. And I said, okay. And right off the bat, I got a ribbon on it. If I ran the sortie today when it changes, I would probably get a sculpture, or I would probably get a piddly amount of Indo or Kuva, or I'd probably get a useless adapter, forma, catalyst, or reactor. That's probably what I'd get. I would probably get that. I would probably get one of each one of those things for probably the next week to 2 weeks before I saw another ribbon mod. So what am I proposing? Well, first, I'm just trying to put everything into perspective. If you're a newer player, you're thinking, oh, you're crazy. You want the X-less adapters. You want the forma or the catalyst or the rect. You want those. No, you want those. Again, there are differences between newer players and experienced players. And I'm not trying to throw shade at newer players. I'm simply saying that while the sortie reward pool is not a new debate, I'm just simply putting a suggestion out there. Okay, a suggestion that we need changes to the sortie reward pool. All right, that's all that I'm saying. So what do I propose exactly? Simple, the easy part. We need 2 reward pools. We have reward pool A, as we have it now, currently. And then we need a second reward pool, B. And how this would work is you would go up here and you would select the menu. And as you select the menu, what would end up happening is before the start of it, it would say, choose which reward pool you want your reward from. And you would have to choose reward pool A, what we have currently, or reward pool B. And once you choose that reward pool, you're locked in it for that sortie. Now, the next day when it changes over, you can choose a different reward pool. So later today, when the sortie changes, at that point you can change it. But once you start the sortie under a reward pool, you're locked in on it. All right. Now, what do I propose be in this second reward pool? Now, that's the question, isn't it? That's the question. What should be in it? Now, ribbon mods obviously can stay. Legendary cores can obviously stay. Sculptures, we need a few different types that offer a substantially larger amount of Indo. Meaning that we need an Iatan sculpture, new Iatan sculpture, say 3 different ones, that are worth easily, bare minimum, 10,000 Indo each. Now again, you're thinking, oh geez, 10,000 Indo, that's crazy. Again, to completely fusion up, rank it up, one ribbon, one singular ribbon is going to cost me 7,500 Indo. So literally 10,000 Indo will let me level one ribbon mod. One ribbon. So it may sound like a large amount. These figures that we're talking about sounds like, oh geez, that's a lot. But it's not. Not in the grand scheme of things. Alright. So, and have these new Iatan sculpture cycle. So, you know, maybe it cycles every 2 weeks. So for next 2 weeks, you get to choose from, you get the chance for reward pool B to drop you one of the new sculptures that's worth substantially more Indo. All right. The next thing is these Indo and Kuva can stay, but it needs to be fair. All right. For starters, Kuva needs to be bare. I mean, we're talking a substantially larger amount, like 20,000 Kuva. Now, again, I can already hear people saying, "Oh my goodness, 20,000 Kuva, that's insane." You know, listen. Perspective. Let me put it in context for you. 20,000 Kuva will allow me to roll one ribbon 5 times. Okay? If I have a ribbon that has been rolled 10 times or more, 20,000 Kuva will allow me to roll that ribbon, that one ribbon, 5 times. That's it. 5 times. That's it. No more. That's it. So again, these numbers sound large, but they're not. In reality, they're not. Now, as far as the Indo goes, this Indo amount needs to be higher. Again, It needs to be much higher. Now, keeping in mind that a Riven is going to cost you over 7,500 Indo to fully rank up in Fusion. Keeping in mind that a primed mod is going to run you nearly 41,000 Indo to max a prime mod. This Indo amount needs to be much larger. And again, it's my firm belief that this Indo amount needs to be in that 20,000 neighborhood. That would allow us to rank a primed mod about halfway. Not quite halfway. That will allow us to fully rank 2 Riven mods. 2. 20,000 Indo allows us to rank up 2 Riven mods in Fusion. 2. That's it. So while these numbers sound large, they're not large. They're not large. 3-day boosters, those can stay. Now let's talk about these gold drops. The Exilus adapters, the Forma, the Orokin Catalyst, the Orokin Reactor. Let's talk about this. The Unicorn can stay. Alright, the Rainbow Sneezing, Skittle Farting Unicorn can stay. Because again, it doesn't come up enough to even really discuss. But it can stay in Reward Pool B as well. Now let's talk about this gold drop. We need new weapons to appear in the sortie, and they need to cycle like every 2 weeks, for example, with the sculptures. So what weapons do I personally have in mind? And this would be the part. So for example, you would have the barrel, you would have the receiver, you would have the blueprint, so on and so forth. So you would have 4 parts that could potentially drop from Reward Pool B. Now, my personal opinion on what needs to be, what weapons, take weapons that are good and give them a Wraith version, right? So, for one weapon that I personally would really like to see would be like the Sobek. Give me like a Sobek Vandal or a Sobek Wraith, right? Because we don't have a Sobek Prime. We don't have any special versions of the Sobek. There's no special Sobek in any of the syndicates, right? So we don't have a special version of the Sobek. So give me like a Sobek Wraith or a Sobek Vandal, right? So I can get the Sobek Vandal or Wraith, stock as a drop, or a receiver as a drop, or a barrel as a drop, or the blueprint as a drop. And of course these would be tradable. And for secondaries, what I would like to see is something like maybe the Aklex, like an Aklex. I clicked on the wrong thing. An Aklex, like Vandal or Wraith or something along those lines. Or the Vasto even would work. Or like a special version of the Magnus, or the Ak Magnus, the Aki Combo Magnus. That would be awesome too. Any of those would work. But again, you would have to, one drop would give you. These would take substantially longer to acquire because you would have to run more sorties, because you could only get 1 barrel when you need 2. You could only get 1 receiver when you need 2, so on and so forth. So it would take you substantially longer running the sorties to get the full set. But that's not a bad thing. People would have a reason to run the sorties at that point, right? And then for the third weapon, you would want some type of a special melee weapon, right? You would want to get a special melee weapon. And again, all of these would be tradable in trade chat. So if I want I don't know, let's say a Jet Kadag Vandal, or a Jet Kadag Wraith, right? That I would love that, Or how about a Skoliak Wraith, or a Skoliak Vandal, right? How about that? Or a Guandeo Wraith, or Guandeo Vandal. I mean, any of these ideas would be just fantastic. Right? And that way your experienced vet players have a reason to run the sortie. You would have our interest peaked at that point. And we would. I can tell you, me personally, it's been 2-3 months since I ran a sortie. And then last night I ran this sortie with my buddy. And I got a Riven mod. Color me surprised. But really, I didn't want to run it. I didn't really want to run it. I really had no interest in running it. Alright. but you start putting some of these really good weapons, but give us like an upgraded Vandal version or Wraith version, oh yeah, I'm going to be running this sortie every single day. Now the question that really comes up here is longevity. You know, for the first couple of months, people are going to be running these sorties to get these weapons. But what do you do after that? Well, that's where upkeep comes into play. That's kind of one of DE's problems. They'll drop new content, it isn't popular, and then it just kind of goes to the wayside. We need upkeep on this stuff. We need a constant influx and cycling of weapons and gear, loot, tasty loot. You know, maybe instead of the 3-day boosters, you throw in some sort of cosmetic that you can only get from the sortie.
It will be marked.
All right. Maybe give us Sugatra or some sort of a sortie Sayandana or something. You know, something along those lines. Maybe do that. But I'm not saying add anything to the sortie as far as, you know, modifiers or anything like that. I'm just saying allow us to choose a different reward pool, because as it stands now, as an experienced or vet player, if I get 4,000 Indo or 6,000 Kuva, it's the equivalent of getting nothing at all for running the sortie. If I get an adapter, forma, catalyst, or reactor, it is the equivalent of getting nothing at all for running the sortie. I mean, I've already got reactors, catalysts, and adapters and forma in my inventory right now collecting dust. They've been there for forever collecting dust. So giving me more that are just going to sit in my foundry and collect dust is the equivalent of giving me nothing at all for running the sortie. Now, newer players can choose from the reward pool as well. If a newer player decides, well, I need a catalyst, but I really want that weapon, I'm going to go with the reward pool B. So that's my suggestion. That's my idea. What do you guys think? What would you like to see? Would you like to see a secondary reward pool that you can choose from? Would you like to see special weapons in that reward pool? Let me know what you're thinking. And until next time, peace and grace.